This is a zebrafish. Its brain is roughly the size of a grain of rice. And when scientists expose it to chronic stress, its cortisol levels spike, its immune function drops, and its offspring are born with smaller brains and slower reflexes. Same hormone, same mechanism, same downstream consequences as in a chronically stressed human brain. So the question isn't really, do animals get stressed? The real question is, how deep does stress go in the evolutionary tree? And what does that tell us about ourselves? To understand why this happens, we need to go back roughly 500 million years. That's when the common ancestor of all vertebrates, a small marine organism living on the ancient seafloor, developed an emergency alert system that we now call the HPA axis. HPA stands for hypothalamic pituitary adrenal. 3 structures, wired in sequence. Here is how it works. When the brain detects a threat, the hypothalamus releases corticotropin-releasing hormone, which signals the pituitary gland, which then tells the adrenal glands to pump out cortisol, the primary stress hormone. Cortisol immediately raises blood glucose, accelerates heart rate, and diverts blood flow to skeletal muscle. The body is ready to fight or flee within seconds. What's remarkable is that this system has remained almost entirely intact for 500 million years. A 2023 review published in Frontiers in Veterinary Science confirmed that the HPA axis is conserved across all vertebrate classes: fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and every mammal on Earth. In fish, it's called the HPI axis. The I stands for entorhinal tissue, which is the functional equivalent of the adrenal gland. But the molecular cascade is the same, and the biological purpose is identical. Put simply, your stress response isn't uniquely human. It's inherited from an ancient fish that lived before dinosaurs existed. Alright, so the system exists across species. But does it actually activate in real-world conditions? In 2023, a research team from Ohio State University went into the greater Chicago metropolitan area. 9 million people, concrete, traffic, light pollution, and tracked down 97 coyotes living in the middle of it. Instead of drawing blood, which only captures stress at a single moment in time, they collected small hair samples. Because hair incorporates cortisol as it grows, it functions like a biological diary, recording average stress levels across weeks or even months. The results, published in Science of the Total Environment, were unambiguous. Coyotes living in the most urbanized areas had the highest cortisol concentrations, significantly higher than coyotes in suburban zones, and substantially higher than those living in natural, undeveloped habitats. Lead researcher Dr. Stan Gert noted that this was the first large carnivore mammal to be assessed for chronic stress in an urban environment, and the data made clear that city life was physiologically costly for these animals, even for a species that has adapted remarkably well to human-dominated landscapes. But here is the question that really matters. If chronic stress persists long enough, what happens not just to that individual, but to its offspring? This is the Yukon, Canada. Boreal forest. Winter. And this is where Professor Rudy Boonstra of the University of Toronto spent more than 4 decades of his career observing, measuring, and waiting. His subject, the snowshoe hare, Lepus americanus. This species follows a striking population cycle. Roughly every 10 years, hare numbers explode, then crash. At the population peak, predation pressure from Canada lynx and great horned owls becomes relentless. These animals live in a state of near-constant predator threat. Boonstra's team measured glucocorticoids, the hormone class that includes cortisol, in the blood and feces of pregnant female hares during the height of predation pressure. Then they weighed the offspring. The pups born to chronically stressed mothers were 37% lighter and 16% shorter than pups born to unstressed mothers, despite the mothers consuming identical food intake. What that means is this: maternal stress hormones cross the placenta and reprogram the offspring's HPA axis before birth. Those leverets had never encountered a single lynx, but their nervous systems were already calibrated for a high-threat environment from the moment they were born. This is epigenetic programming, the process by which environmental signals alter gene expression without changing the underlying DNA sequence. And it was happening in wild animals under natural ecological conditions, not in a laboratory. Chronic stress doesn't only affect the individual experiencing it, it can shape the biology of the next generation. And now, the part of this story I think will genuinely stop some of you. In 2001, at Pilanesberg National Park in South Africa, wildlife rangers began documenting a disturbing pattern of behavior in a group of young elephants that had been relocated there from Kruger National Park, where years earlier, large-scale culling operations had been carried out to manage population size. These elephants had all been under the age of 10 when they were moved, and they had witnessed members of their social group, including matriarchs and mothers, being killed in front of them. Years later, in a completely safe and stable environment, these same animals showed exaggerated startle responses to minor stimuli, unprovoked aggression, particularly the males, who were attacking white rhinoceroses, a species they had no ecological reason to be hostile toward, severely disrupted social signaling within the group, and persistent avoidance of vehicles, even though no vehicle at Pilanesberg had ever caused them harm. Researchers cross-referenced these behavioral profiles against the DSM-5 diagnostic criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder. The overlap was striking. The neurological mechanism here is the amygdala, the almond-shaped structure in the brain that encodes and retrieves fear memories. The amygdala is one of the most evolutionarily ancient regions of the vertebrate brain. According to a comprehensive review in the Annual Review of Ecology, Evolution, and Systematics, the neural circuitry for fear memory encoding was already in place before the primate lineage diverged from other mammals, which means it is present, in some form, in fish, birds, reptiles, and every mammalian species studied to date. Trauma-based memory is not a uniquely human phenomenon. So if coyotes carry chronic stress in their fur, if stress rewires the brains of the next generation of hares, and if elephants exhibit something neurologically consistent with PTSD, where exactly does the boundary lie? Can simpler animals, with far smaller nervous systems, experience something analogous? In 2011, researchers at the University of Newcastle asked a question that most people considered absurd at the time. Can a honeybee experience something like anxiety? They took a group of honeybees and subjected them to vigorous shaking for 60 seconds, designed to simulate the physical experience of a predator attack. Then they placed those bees in front of an ambiguous olfactory task, a neutral scent that had been associated with neither reward nor punishment. Bees that hadn't been shaken responded to the ambiguous cue at roughly 50-50, consistent with a neutral baseline. Bees that had just been shaken consistently classified the ambiguous stimulus as threatening. In cognitive psychology, this is called a negative judgment bias, the tendency to interpret uncertain information as negative. In humans, this exact bias is a defining feature of both anxiety and clinical depression. The study, published in Current Biology, went further. The shaken bees also had measurably lower levels of dopamine, serotonin, and octopamine, three biogenic amines that function as neuromodulators in the insect brain and have direct functional parallels to monoamine neurotransmitters in the mammalian nervous system. A follow-up study in 2024, published in Proceedings of the Royal Society B, replicated and extended the finding. Bees exposed to physical stress consistently chose smaller, safer rewards even when larger rewards were available, a quantifiable behavioral marker of pessimistic cognition. One of the study's co-authors stated that the findings suggest bees may experience emotional states analogous to those of other animals under stress, expressed as a measurable shift toward negative cognitive bias. An insect, a nervous system with fewer than 1 million neurons, still exhibiting stress-induced cognitive distortion that can be experimentally measured. So where does it end? If a bee shows signs of stress-related cognitive change, what about bacteria? What about plants? This is where neuroscience draws an important and precise distinction. Physiological stress, a biochemical response to a harmful stimulus, is extremely widespread in biology. Plants release ethylene gas when damaged. Bacteria activate heat shock proteins under thermal stress. These are real molecular responses, but they do not require a nervous system, and there is no credible scientific basis for attributing subjective experience to them. Subjective stress, actually feeling the experience of stress, requires a nervous system complex enough to generate and integrate internal states. The more sophisticated the central nervous system, the richer the likely experience. In 2012, at the Francis Crick Memorial Conference in Cambridge, 22 of the world's leading neuroscientists co-signed an unprecedented statement, the Cambridge Declaration on Consciousness. They wrote that the weight of evidence indicates that humans are not unique in possessing the neurological substrates that generate consciousness. The document specifically named mammals, birds, and a range of invertebrates including octopuses. They were not claiming that all animals are conscious in the way humans are. They were saying that the line we have historically drawn between animals that feel and animals that merely react has been placed in the wrong location. So do animals get stressed? Yes. The stress response evolved long before humans, and neuroscience shows that many animals share the same core biological mechanisms we do. The experience varies with nervous system complexity. A bee doesn't experience stress like an elephant, but neither is just reacting. What we often called instinct is increasingly understood as genuine stress biology, and that matters for how we treat livestock, manage wildlife, and coexist with the billions of animals that share our planet. Subscribe for more neuroscience insights.